All right, guys, Dave Chang here. We're at the Row, downtown Los Angeles, and I just made béarnaise sauce, hopefully correctly this time. If you watched Dinner Time Live, the last episode with Diplo and Chrissy Teigen, I've been trying to commit seppuku every day because I messed it up and I broke it like a dum-dum. But I wanted to show you, listen, you can learn from anything. It's also not the smartest decision I made to do that on live TV. It takes time, it takes some dedication, and it's really simple. And if you care about gastronomy, it's a very important sauce. Anyway, stay tuned. We're gonna make that at the end of the episode. We'll get right back to you with some Ask Daves. What else we doing?
A little MOIF.
And a little MOIF. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Dave Chang Show, part of the Ringer Podcast Network, presented by Major Domo Media. Thank you, Yola Tango, as always. We're going to do an Ask Dave, some MOIF, but I first wanted to talk about a guest we're going to have in a week or so, Chef Jeremy Fox. He is a Birdie G's on the West Coast, West Side in Santa Monica. He is still a partner, I believe, in Rustic Canyon. You can go to our catalog and listen to the episode I did with him, I think in 2019. I've known him a long time. Foxy is unequivocally one of the best chefs America's ever produced. So check out his restaurant. And he also has a new book out on meat. His previous book, I wrote a foreword on. It's called On Vegetables. And Jeremy is one of the real most knowledgeable, most good people in our business. So excited to have him on as a guest.
This episode is presented by Vital Farms. Look, when it comes to cooking, I say it all the time. You're only as good as your ingredients. That's why you've got to use Vital Farms. Their eggs are legit. The hens get to roam around outside, forage in grass, and feel the sunshine. And you can trace your eggs back to the farm they came from. Seriously, you can see an actual video of the actual farm where your eggs were laid on their website. Whether you're poaching eggs for breakfast or folding them into something like a souffle, reach for Vital Farms. You'll love the taste. Look for the black carton in the egg aisle and visit vitalfarms.com to learn more.
But I did want to focus on one thing is that restaurant Ubuntu. I recently, for Rob Report, talked about, they asked me to vote on most important restaurants at the beginning of the century. And I would say that anybody that didn't put Ubuntu on that list doesn't know modern gastronomy. And I don't say that lightly. It makes me sad because it's also a cautionary tale that Fox has talked about a lot. Anyway, Fox, born and raised in the Atlanta, Georgia area, wound up becoming the chef de cuisine at Manresa under David Kinch when I think that had 2 stars, or not even. They didn't even have a Michelin guide in that time yet. And, really was in charge and helped lead one of the best culinary teams ever assembled, I think, at least in America. James Shaibout, Aisha Ibrahim, who we've had on the podcast. We should get James on as well. And later opened up Ubuntu, which was in the Napa Valley. And I've talked about it before. I remember Peter Serpico and I, he was instrumental in the early days of Momofuku, one of the great chefs, great teacher, great instructor, and he's available for culinary advisory roles, menu development, etc. But anyway, we're out on the West Coast, came out to eat at Napa and have Corey Lee's last sort of months as chef de cuisine at French Laundry. And that was one of the best meals I ever had. And I mean, in my opinion, that was peak French Laundry, probably the best French Laundry's ever been. I haven't been recently, but I think whatever happens, even though it might be the best, for me, still the best, that period was, for me, my favorite French Laundry period. I got served the meal with chopsticks, which I never thought was possible. But on that same trip, we're friendly with Evan Rich and Sarah Rich of Rich Table in San Francisco. They used to work at... They used to work for Boulet. They used to work with Serpico, and we'd visit them. And small world. Everyone keeps in touch. And everyone was like, "You got to check out this restaurant." And I don't even remember if it was the same trip, but I remember it being the same trip. on the West Coast. And Evan was just saying that this restaurant, Ubuntu, and I was like, what is that? And he's like, you'll never guess. It's in a yoga studio. It's in the middle of nowhere, Napa or Sonoma, and it's on a farm. And it just seemed like a far-fetched idea. And that meal we wound up having was a holy fuck moment. It was all vegetarian, which at the time made sense because David Kinch was very influenced by Alain Passard of Arpège, and in the mid to late 90s, Passard did the famous J'accuse against the meat sort of industry in France, and how he said that it wasn't worth cooking. He is also, Passard, one of the great meat cooks of all time, and they say it's like the school of fire, but he went all vegetables for a while, and that was a pivotal moment in Western gastronomy. And none of this matters to you. It probably should if you care, because so much of what Fox did was a distillation of Kinch and Passard, and Passard's cuisine is proven to be having more longevity than most in terms of modern gastronomy, in terms of how people plate, how people think about food, about being in touch with your land, your farmers, your produce, etc. Anyway, Fox sort of took that idea and he went further than no one in America had gone before at that time with vegetables, and making a whole restaurant based about like vegetarian cuisine. He's made a lot of dishes that you never thought were possible. And he treated vegetables like they were meat, and he treated vegetables that you didn't think could be coaxed in new ways with new flavors that were mind-bending. And at its peak, I think that every chef worth their grain of salt in the world that I knew of visited Ubuntu. And every single chef took something from there because they had not seen anything like that before. He had this ox heart carrot, which is this gnarly carrot that looked like a tomato, quite frankly, but a gnarly, hard as rock carrot. And maybe someone had done it before, but not to my knowledge. Cooking it slowly, roasting it like it was a piece of meat, like a piece of beef, a dry-aged beef. And what resulted was a flavor and the concentration of sugars in the carrot, and because it came from his own farm, and he's not only like planting the vegetables, he's harvesting, he's a one-man army. Yes, he worked with there were a lot of people, but this guy was just working overtime, and I just think that for that period of time when Ubuntu was open, I can't think of a restaurant that influenced more restaurants around the world, and I mean that around the world. Maybe not so much Asia, but definitely Europe, definitely America, because those ideas just sort of cross-pollinated all over the place. And that restaurant was amazing, and it led to a lot of pressure. And I don't want to talk about that with Fox. We've talked about that before in the last podcast he was on. And it bums me out because I don't know if people know how influential he is. And Foxy can cook anything in the world that he wants to. And he wants to cook the food at Bertie G's, which is fucking delicious. And so I'm happy to have him on board on this podcast. Again, he's promoting his new book on meat. So go buy that, go check it out, because whatever's in his brain is more valuable than most people could ever think about or dream about, quite frankly. So we'll have a great conversation with him in a little bit. Just wanted to give you a primer. Again, if you're unfamiliar with Jeremy Fox, go buy his previous book on vegetables. That's a lot of the philosophy he had at Ubuntu in there. And now on meat, which is sort of his life's work about cooking meat. And again, nobody knows more about food in an original way than Jeremy Fox. So excited to have him on. So we'll take a break, come back, we're gonna do an Ask Dave and a MOIF.
The Ask Dave for today is from Juna from Dallas, Texas, Majordomo level 3. Favorite dish that Juna makes is the 3-packet slow cooker pot roast with the Mo maltodextrin, the Mo beta is what it says. Juna's best meal was a yakiniku place in Shibuya Crossing in Tokyo. Didn't have a plan, just stumbled in and it was great. And the question that Juna has is, How come chefs can get away with smoking cigarettes? Does it not kill your palate?
I feel like a broken record oftentimes on this pod because I've talked about it too much, but again, my controversial opinion is this. and please, it's not something I recommend, but I would say that if you had to put a list of the great chefs in the world, I would say majority of them smoked cigarettes at one point, probably in their formative years as a cook. Not everyone, but a good percentage. I'd say over 75%. And when you look at that, you got to ask yourself, well, is that just culture? Yes, I think it's a lot of things, but there is a possibility that it has something to do with your palate. And here's what smoking does unequivocally. It kills your palate. It deadens it. It makes it so you need to add more salt, more spice, more acidity. Definitely more acidity. And I think when you're first starting out as a cook, not we all know, but when you start cooking professionally, you're adding more sodium, way more fat, way more acidity than you ever would in a home cook or your parents or your dad or mom would ever cook with. And the reason why that's important is if you're cooking in a restaurant that's a degustation meal, like it's a slow progression and your mouth needs to get awakened because it gets bored, quite frankly. So each course needs to have a little bit more punch. And sometimes at home, you're not drinking wines, you're not drinking other beverages, you're not having other things. And also you might be cooking at the time for people that also smoke cigarettes. And I think it's a working theory, clearly, but it kills your palate to the point where you need to now readjust in a sense that cooking, when you're first starting out, you're now adding more than you thought was possible. And I think that is actually it's not essential that you smoke cigarettes, clearly, but at least for myself, and I won't name names, but just about every fucking chef I know of that's really good smokes cigarettes. Not everyone. There are definitely other people that never smoke cigarettes. I don't want to say that you have to, but again, there seems to be maybe a slight correlation with the ability to, again, when you're older, because part of the problem is if you're a chef that smokes cigarettes, you can make food that is way too salty, way too acidic. And again, you get in this echo chamber and you have to learn how to reset your palate. So, and also smoking cigarettes is a stress relief for a lot of chefs. If you have a moment, you have a break, it can actually be sort of relaxing. So yeah, I wish it wasn't so bad for you, but I will say that it does make it difficult to accurately judge the palate of the diner because your palate gets fucked.
On the same episode that you made the Bernaise sauce for Chrissy Teigen and Diplo, you also made a potato gratin dish. Mm-hmm. Potato sides.
Yeah.
French fries, tater tots, are they peak? Are they overrated?
French fries? No, I love French fries. Again, when I see my youngest son and he would rather eat French fries than anything else in the world, genetics, it's a real thing. I love fucking French fries. I love potatoes, all forms. I can make these blanket statements. I recently said, I was with Adam and Mark Vetri and all those chefs. And I was like, I just don't love eating potato puree as much as I used to as a kid, or not kid, in restaurants, because when you make it every day, 2 times a day, and you put all the fat in it, and it's just emulsification of potatoes and fat, it's something I used to love, right? Everyone sort of makes their version of a Robuchon potatoes, and Robuchon would make these with Lorat style of potato that are small, fingerling-like potatoes, and you peel them and you pass them through a chinois and tammy and mount it with equal parts butter and milk. It's luxurious, it's delicious. And that was like arguably one of the great chefs of all time's signature dishes. And because it's so good, I think a lot of restaurants got carried away making it all the time. And if you make that kind of pomme puree a lot, it's hard, at least for me, to taste it all the time or just to want it. Anyway, I made the assumption when I was talking with APL, like, don't you get sick of it? And he's like, absolutely not, I love it. So again, I got to be careful with my blanket statements, but potato puree is probably the most desired potato in a restaurant. I think secondly is some kind of fancy version of a crispy fried French fry. And that could be pomme souffle, some kind of crunchy fry potato thing. I think people love. But if you go to steakhouse, it's hash browns, it's, parmesan, it's all kinds of crispy potato stuff, I think is what people love. But I think ultimately the French fry, it may not belong in a tasting menu restaurant. It definitely belongs in a steakhouse. It doesn't belong in every, it can be a crutch at times, but even if it's store-bought, French fries are delicious as long as they're hot and crispy. So I'm a fan, but it's also, cottage fries to me are the most underrated kind of fried fry thing. And shout out again to Heston Blumenthal because she's the one that really invented the triple cooked French fry. We have one, again, Dave Arnold, who we mention all the time, informed us to use a certain kind of pectin that sets the starch, which allows you to basically make this giant French fry that has like this mashed potato filling. But regardless, French fry technology has come very far. Technology, I mean the techniques. But I think one of my favorite kinds of fried potatoes, just look it up, Heston Blumenthal's chips, which he serves with his very, very famous vodka batter for his fish and chips.
That all sounds delicious. Dave, you get to outlaw one word from food menus forever.
Okay, easy.
Oh.
Flavor profile. Fucking can't take it anymore. And I hate that I have perpetuated saying that so much. It's when my Indian friends get upset when someone says chai tea, right? Like tea, it's so dumb, You don't say hot chocolate. You don't say French fry potato. You sort of just know. Certain things are, and I don't even think those are actually strong enough as a analogy of how stupid it is to say flavor profile. So what do you mean when you say flavor profile? This dish has notes of sort of like of rose and hickory or whatever the fuck, right? All we need to say is flavor. That's it, flavor. It tastes like this. Flavor profile, God damn it.
What's the best inexpensive food gift you can get someone?
Inexpensive food gift, that's a good question. I know, that's me, beef jerky. But beef jerky is not cheap. Beef jerky is not cheap. It is actually quite expensive. But good beef jerky from an artisanal producer or somebody that does small batch, it's pretty great gift. If they're vegetarian or vegan, probably not the right gift. I don't know. You know what another good gift is if you're a vegetarian? No, this doesn't work if you're vegetarian either. In Virginia, they do peanuts that are fried in pork fat.
Ooh.
Those are fucking good. Really fucking good. Also not kosher. So all my gifts are not acceptable or applicable for kosher diets or vegetarian or vegan. But when you see a blistered peanut that's fried, you can see it on this, they're shelled, but you can see the tiny bubbles on it, and they're just super crunchy on the outside. That's really fucking good. I don't know why I would think that as a gift, but that'd be a good gift.
When my parents and I went to Hawaii when I was a kid, they gave me a budget for souvenirs, and we went to the road to Hana, and there's a rest stop called Halfway to Hana, and I had the beef jerky there. And it was so good that I blew the entire souvenir budget all on bags of beef jerky. It's a great gift.
Yeah. Beef jerky is great. I guess I should think about you know what? Now's not the day. All right. I never thought I'd make béarnaise or talk about béarnaise so much this month. But a little story before I started. You make béarnaise a few times in cooking school, went to French Culinary Institute. Again, béarnaise is a variation of the hollandaise, which is the mother sauce, which was invented by the chef Colonnet. You put crème, escoffier. Crème is, one of the greats. Escoffier, codified French gastronomy as we know it. And Colonnet invented béarnaise. And you don't think you're gonna make it too often, but it's delicious with steaks, particularly beef, in my opinion. And when I started working at Kraft, I would watch Damon Wise, it was like 2000, and there would just be a vat. I mean, I don't know how many pounds of butter. It seemed like 15, 20 pounds, or like 20 blocks of butter, meticulously cutting them into cubes. I don't remember how many egg yolks, and I would just watch while I'm prepping, and just giant whisk, and he would slowly mount, make the emulsion, reduce the tarragon, vinegar, black peppercorn, shallots, and we would also fold in bone marrow and fold in some whipped cream as well. I believe that's correct. Definitely the bone marrow, and we'd serve that with the sirloin or the ribeye. It was the double ribeye, which was pretty cheap back then. It was like $96. Now you see it for almost $350 at a lot of places. Anyway, and that's when I really fell in love with it. Tarragon was not a flavor that I grew up with at all, but the smell on this with butter is just intoxicating to me. So I'm gonna make Bernaise, this time not on live TV. It's gonna be edited. And again, so that's the difference. So I'm gonna get started. First and foremost, we toast off some of these peppercorns. This is from SOS Chefs in New York City, a Tef. We love you.
Do you think the average home cook should have full peppercorns?
Yeah, I mean, you can crack them too. I'm being lazy.
Yeah.
Champagne vinegar, reduce it down. I'm putting this in this pan right here. Larger surface area means it's going to reduce more quickly. If you put it in a saucepan, it has almost like weather patterns. You can almost see it in the steam. Steam goes back into it, right? So because of the walls, it'll evaporate, but it'll evaporate more quickly if you don't have a large surface area. So I want to reduce this as quickly as possible. I mean, I probably put half a bottle of champagne vinegar, and this smell is like super fucking intense. But from a distance, you can almost separate the smell of the peppercorn and the shallots distinct, and you can actually just smell the tarragon. And I don't know why I love that smell. It's not a smell I grew up with at all.
What are some of the most underused or underrated herbs other than tarragon?
I don't think tarragon is underrated. It just is not everyone's cup of tea.
And is cubing the butter, because you said that they did that at Kraft as well, is there something to it being cubed versus?
Well, no, I mean, actually, I haven't even thought about the science of that. You could easily just use melted butter. Again, one of the differences is, again, when I know I spoke about working for Jean-Georges, but he would make all of his butter sauces with whole butter, no clarified butter. And, when I worked for Danielle, everything was cooked in, Andrew Carmelli, everything was clarified butter, like everything. And sometimes you'd make it, sometimes it would be bought. It was always nice when you could get pre-bought clarified butter, but having to make it, that smell, I just hate it. I hate the fucking smell of clarified butter. That's just me. And I always just, again, milk solids are delicious, right? There's sugars in it. There's other amino acids. It just tastes good to me, which is why Bernaise, the brown butter, is so good. Again, the problem with milk solids is that it will burn. So in terms of a sauce, I actually think it tastes better. That's just, again, my opinion. So we're gonna reduce this down. I have 2 egg yolks. Just a little bit more. And this is a bain-marie setup, maybe a little bit too hot. During the show, I made the emulsion directly in a pan, and you can do it like this. I think the first person I saw make this was Jonathan Beno, who was the chef de cuisine at both the French Laundry and then at Per Se, one of my mentors. And when I saw him do that, I was like, whoa, you can make an emulsification right on the direct flame, because that's not how you cook in cooking school. And you don't have to set it up this way. It is just more of an explanation of, I think, skill level. But again, the difference is usually you can cook this on a flat top. And a flat top would be a big stainless or piece of steel over this. So the heat would be, again, I mentioned in different quadrants. So a burner is great for certain kinds of cooking in a professional kitchen. It's not my favorite. I would much rather have constant, almost like an induction, but it's not electric, it's gas. I know you've seen it. Think about it as a griddle or a plancha. And I just find it to be a more even cooking. Anyway, I'm gonna strain this.
So the bain-marie setup is a pan or like a saucepan filled with water.
Yep.
With the
it's usually just a saucepan filled with water. In kitchens, people call this a bain as well.
Yeah. That's where I was confused.
So we have a reduction now. Again, we talked about lecithin and other proteins in the egg yolks, and this is going to act as sort of the net, per se, to start attracting the acidity to the fat. Again, this is also fat in here, but the fat that's in the butter that we're going to add. And you want to whisk pretty vigorously, figure eights. And even if it's on a double boiler, you don't want to always keep it on the heat because you will start to cook, right? And immediately you can see it already getting a little bit thicker. The last thing you want are curdled. You're basically scrambling eggs. You can cook scrambled eggs in a bain-marie this way as well. Again, the difference between this and Dinner Time Live is I'm not talking to a guest. This is not live. And I don't have 3 other dishes cooking at the same time. And I'm not keeping time, right? I'm not worried about every minute that goes by is another minute I lose in terms of doing other things. And this is where you could be pouring in clarified butter. You could be doing it as a stream like you would be making mayonnaise, because really this is just hot mayonnaise. And honestly, I've never thought about the science as to if there is even a difference doing it hot or cold. This is going to take about like 7 minutes, which was stupid in retrospect to trying to do this live. It was actually, now that I'm doing it this way, I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. All I've done is 2 egg yolks, reduced half a bottle of vinegar, usually champagne vinegar, white wine vinegar, to I'd say 4 tablespoons. And I do that reduction with black peppercorns, shallots, and a few sprigs of tarragon. And as the egg yolk now cooks, it's going to start to thicken. This is very similar, again, to making an anglaise, the liquid before you freeze an ice cream. Completely different, but in terms of texture, not so different.
I mean, we've talked about it on this podcast and in general, but the egg, pretty amazing thing.
Yeah, which is why I'm always perplexed when you see food critics say they don't like eggs. I'm like, how can you really judge a restaurant if you don't like eggs? It's pretty crazy to me. I mean, you're never eating Bernaise on its own, ever. It's always dipped or covering something. I like French fries in this. It's also delicious. And again, in terms of the ratio, you want 70% fat to 30%. You know, it could be 65% fat, but usually it's 70-30 is the ratio of fat to acidity. And that's sort of a golden mean, at least in French cuisine, I feel like 70-30 is also the ratio you want when you're making a pate or some kind of farce. In terms of meat to fat ratio, I think there is some kind of golden mean to that idea. Although 70-30 is a little bit too much fat for a burger. I think it's like 75-25 in my opinion, but you want to always get the sides because that's going to start curdling as well.
This to me is kind of like whenever you see an NBA player in the championship, they lose a game, and then there's those videos of them at like 3 a.m. the next day getting shots up, like they're the first ones in the gym. Like it feels like that.
No, it shouldn't, because this is so dumb. This is literally doing your ABCs as a cook, and I just, as you can see, we've been filming this for quite some time. I want to say like 10 minutes, and I just thought I could do that live, doing everything else, and it's clearly not the case. You really can't do anything else. Almost there. And again, we're now forcing these unlikely friends together, the molecules of fat and acidity, and they're going to hold a temporary bond. And that really is the emulsion. This is a vinaigrette, any kind of dressing, hollandaise again. And the thickening agent really is the proteins in that yolk that are now dispersed in tiny bits that are cooking, that are now like just sticking shit together on a micro level. But all butter sauces like are this too, right? So French butter sauce, Beurre Blanc to me is still the most underrated best sauce. But as you can see, this is just like a hot mayonnaise. I'm gonna season. It does taste different if you do clarified. You got something that tastes more clarified butter. I don't know what else to say. That's that. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna break this now so you can see what happens if you heat it too much. Those very bonds that you're trying to have hold together everything start to break. Literally, the fat starts to melt away from the bonds, and that's how it separates, and you see it right now. Which is why one of the things I did not say is you want to cook this over a gentle heat, not something fucking rapid hot like that. And immediately it starts to break. So now this happens all the time in restaurants. All the time. See how fragile those bonds are. So if you're working in a professional kitchen, sometimes you would have literally a bain-marie that might be very big, that holds all the sauces, your veal reduction, your chicken reductions, your mushroom jus, whatever. And they're all in little things like this with ladles, and they're covered so it doesn't create a skin. And these sauces in a French kitchen or something that is influenced by French cuisine, which are honestly most kitchens, that take a lot of work. So you want to make sure that they're always at the ready when you're coming to a plate. So now if I'm at the pass, someone's bringing, pick up 3 salmon, 2 mushroom risotto, whatever, they all come. Sous chef finished plating the mushroom risotto. I have the fish. Entremetier brings the veg, right? So it's all here. Now I'm plating, and then maybe another person, it could be one person, it could be 6 people, takes the sauce that was also in a bain-marie and garnishes it, or they put it in a sauce boat and it goes tableside. So there's a lot of different ways you can go about it, but I found the best way to hold a butter emulsion is in a siphon, like an ISI canister. One reason why is it might even break inside the canister if you hold it at like 140 degrees, whatever the temperature you're keeping your bain-marie at, right? So you're holding it in a water bath to keep it hot. Because if it's too cold, it's going to congeal. It's too hot, it's going to break. But I think the pressure of using nitrous or CO2 actually sort of re-emulsifies it. But in general, a thermos, it's basically a thermos. It's an amazing way of keeping your sauce hot. You don't even have to keep it in the bain-marie. I think that if you put this, when it was done right, into a canister, an ISI canister, for those that don't know, that's like a soda gun thing, right? So whipped cream maker. It's going to keep it warm throughout service, so you don't have to worry about it at all. So that, as a means of delivering sauce for at least a butter emulsion, is the most effective way. But even still, you're going to have this. This happens, if you work brunch service and you have hollandaise, it's a fucking nightmare. There's a lot of different ways of fixing this. I could basically remake this with another egg yolk, add a little more fat, and you're just almost doing a little alchemy of like, little this, little that, and you're whisking it back in. You can do that. You can also add a little cold water. If I had small ice cubes, I might use that. And if you vigorously whisk, you could theoretically bring it back together as it cools down.
Does the cool water mess up the ratio at all?
Yeah, but it's better than a fucking broken emulsion. And you can see it's coming back together now, right? There you go. And you're ready to roll again. Again, this is not ideal because if you had it too hot, you're now going to curdle this. So even though it's now back together, it could have particulates in it. The particulates being the cooked egg yolk that is now granular. That's a fucking F. The whole thing in a professional kitchen, make it fucking happen. And listen, table's going out, last plate's dying, you don't have time to make a new sauce. These are the sacrifices of those decisions under duress you have to fucking make. And could be a critic's table. You're like, what are you gonna do? Not fucking serve it? These are shitty situations to be in that happen all the fucking time in every kitchen in the fucking world. Thank you so much, guys. Give us 5 stars. Keep on subscribing to our YouTube channel at The Dave Chang Show. Ying is going to come back stronger than ever on Recipe Club at Recipe Club Official. And I need to do a better job of adding things to majorfoodporn.com. Go do it. Thanks, guys.